on this computer. I'll just record a session and, we'll have it. And then she can, participate somehow. So, editors, show us the thing. This is like the palio in Siena. When they win, they say, daccelo, no? Give it to us. So we want to know. I definitely want to know. So go ahead. Tell us everything.
Okay. Do you want one of us to share our screen?
Share the document.
Share the document with you guys so you can just scroll through on your own?
Yeah, I think that'll be good.
Okay. That will take.
Or either way, actually.
Share your screen. It's okay. Yeah, share a screen share and.
Sure. We can definitely send it after too. Like, we'll absolutely send it after.
You have to. I have to upload it online and,
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, Meryl, do you want me to share my screen or do you want to share yours?
Yeah, because I don't know how to share my screen.
Okay, let's see how this goes. I've never done this either. Oh, okay. Maybe it's this.
Yeah.
Are you guys seeing it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm confused. Okay, so first off, we've had some issues with the cover, like just getting the pictures, but here we are. I wish is there like a way to like present, like, so you can just like see it bigger or like all on one, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you can make it smaller, just as if you were working on your, on your computer screen. So zoom down, It's 100%, yeah, you can, maybe 50 is even better.
50? Okay.
50, yeah, there you go.
Okay, here we go. Here we have it. And in disparity, we find beauty. It's our cover page. And then we have our introduction, which we can read if you would like.
Sure.
Or if you just, I can zoom it. Do you want one of us to read it aloud?
Yeah, of course.
Meryl, do you want to read it or?
Sure, I'll read it.
Okay, want me to zoom in?
A little closer, yeah.
Yeah. Is that good for you? Okay.
Yes, that's perfect. What a journey this semester has been. 7 writers, 7 assignments, 2 worlds, all wrapped up into one final anthology. But in the disparity we find beauty is more than just a collection of writing samples, and we are more than just a class. From our characters, adventures, histories, social and physical surroundings, we drew inspiration to create the unique and wondrous works presented here. And we're glad that you, reader, are here to join us too. Towards the end of organizing the pieces, we were reminded of something called a stereogram. Stereograms are a type of optical illusion in which one overwhelming picture is made up of infinite, smaller patterns. The special thing about stereograms is that a larger pattern emerges when you unfocus your eyes on the small details and step back to examine the image as a whole. It is only then that you discover the method behind the madness and see that new pattern jumping out at you. We discuss stereograms because they are a surprisingly accurate representation of how we piece together this anthology. At first, we had no idea how we wanted to group pieces together because we were focusing only on the differences, but soon enough we changed our perspective and began uncovering underlying commonalities in the pieces. We found patterns of contrast among pieces as well as other common themes which connected the works in time and purpose. It led us to discover that in disparity, we really do find beauty. It's not just our journey in writing that our community has faced such chaos. Really, chaos has been the theme of Abroad. What was supposed to be 4 months of independence and adventure turned into 2 when COVID-19 took over our beloved Italy, the rest of the world in tow. In the blink of an eye, we were returning to America, where we would spend the rest of Abroad sitting behind computer screens in the confines of our homes. But despite the fear, anxiety, and loneliness that was born of this contrast, we kept writing. And to Antonella, thank you for guiding us through this chaotic yet beautiful experience. A presto, Kaylin and Meryl.
Grazie, bravi. This is beautiful.
We're glad you like it.
Yeah, I think it's just beautiful, this idea that you came up with, in disparity, we find beauty. And this is so true. This is so true.
Really, it's a metaphor for life. It really, truly is.
It was really fun. Like, when we first started, we were like, we have so many pieces. Like, how are we going to, group these in a way that's not just like, oh, like one writer, here's all their works. We really wanted to try to, weave everything together because that's kind of, how our experience, we thought, has been, in our community of writers. So That's where we came. That's where it came from.
Wonderful. Now show us the sections. Let us see how it is organized.
Okay.
Oh,
So
yeah.
now we go right into our about the authors, which Meryl did such a nice job laying out. And yeah, I'll just kind of scroll slowly. I don't know if y'all.
Mark, why do you only use your pictures of yourself as a baby?
Because I like it. Because those pictures are like the furthest away, you know, and they carry so much. I like them.
Okay.
And I did omit the quotes because I wasn't sure. And if you guys have any suggestions where we could put the quotes, that would be welcomed. But the quotes, as far as like fitting them in with the bios, wasn't super easy because it was kind of throwing off the spacing of the pictures and the ratio of words to color in the pictures. So I didn't put them there. I didn't know if there was like another place that we could fit them.
Maybe, just as an idea, maybe like at the end of each chapter, maybe even in the beginning of each chapter, you can put a quote, or a quote or two to set the tone for it, or to finish it off, like whichever one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like if you want to include them, they don't necessarily have to be paired with
Thanks.
the person who submitted them, because we didn't say the quote, we just liked the quote.
Yeah.
So if you want to include them, you could just put them wherever you see fit, like maybe a page of quotes after the title page, or like Mark said at the beginning of the chapters.
Yeah.
Or don't include them because you're the editors and you should, do whatever you want. So.
Yeah, it could be like parsley that you put on top of your meal, whatever. So I like the idea of putting them in, one page at the beginning, which is like, where you come from in a way. So choose a few one and put them at the beginning of the anthology, like an intro. So just to create an atmosphere and then keep going. And then you could also put some in the end. It's,
Yeah. I like those suggestions. I agree.
Okay, section 1, Italian origins.
Section 1, Italian origins. So we start off with Mark's piece. I don't really know how y'all want us to like talk about this.
We can go by section if you want, Kaylin. We can just
that sounds good. So so Italian origins. So just kind of like to start off, we were kind of like orienting ourselves in Italy. So we liked Mark's to start off because it brings you into like Italian culture, but also like in this wondrous kind of like almost like fantasy like Italian culture. So I feel like it just kind of like took the writer away like and into like our work. I don't know.
Grazie.
Yeah. And then Meryl, do you want to talk about this one?
Do you want to finish this section and then I'll do the next section?
Yeah, I was honestly saying that because you were the one that edited this piece, but
Did I?
Yeah, I think so. Oh wait, no, sorry, this was me. Sorry, it's my bad. And then sorry, and then we went into Peyton's piece because this was like our Peyton's Pinocchio story, because again, she did a really cool thing with her Pinocchio story. I don't know if you guys remember reading it, but she kind of gave like an origin story for Pinocchio, which is kind of cute. So another way to bring like the reader like into our like Italian culture from the beginning. So
I also just heard from Peyton. Peyton said that she did not know what was happening right now, so she's at the grocery store and she says she's very sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I'm recording. So.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. So the second section was the theme of when we decided which pieces we wanted to put together, like I mentioned before, I think, we looked at like contrast as probably the most cohesive thing to bring everything together, and that's obviously why our anthology is titled with disparity in there. And so with Avery's Americans Back from Italy piece, and then also with Jada's portrait of Perugia piece, I believe is what's next, we saw a contrast of like collective and individual perceptions of Perugia, which we thought was really interesting. And they were two ways of like getting to know Italy, because Avery did focus a lot on like the social aspect of Perugia as something that was very different from the United States, like going into the town center and walking through the streets all day so much that it seemed like Italians don't work or do anything. And then Jada took a different perspective on Perugia, which was very like a very reflective like interpretation of her going through the city and appreciating all of her senses. And we thought that was like a very interesting contrast, because Avery had focused on this like very like interpersonal approach, and then Jada, it was very much like her interpreting everything as an individual. And that was definitely like, that theme was one that was pretty common among the Portrait of Perugia pieces, but we thought it was a particularly good contrast when we put those two pieces together.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then, so our third section, we have Finding Your Place. So we start off with story time, which was Cece's Pinocchio story. And then, Meryl, do you want to, I don't have anything specifically to talk about this one. We kind of like, we had to divvy up who like edited and placed like each author's like works, just because there was a lot. But sorry.
Yeah, so this one, sorry, what was the title of this one again?
Sorry, this one was titled
Story Time. Story Time.
Oh, the title, sorry, Finding Your Place. Okay, so this one, I believe, had a few, this section has 3 stories in it, and it has, yes, Cece's Pinocchio piece, because, and this is the linking factor from her piece, was that she talks about, like, as the grandmother and the granddaughter are talking in her piece, they come to the conclusion that it's important to make your own decisions and not be moved around like a puppet by the actions and persuasions of other people. And so this piece kind of introduced the lesson, which was that you should be like, learn to be yourself and make your own decisions, be independent. And then we get into a couple pieces, one of which is Caitlin's, obviously, which she'll talk about, which really show the importance of identity and like finding your place in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so kind of like Meryl talked about, like mine like was a story about just like a young sister who like just wants to be a big kid, and she wants to like be like her big sisters, but also not only that, she just wants her sisters to like kind of see her as like more than just their little sister that they have to look after. She's kind of seeking that independence and like an identity, I guess, within her family, which is kind of where that came from. And then that one went into, this is the section with 3, sorry. Oh, sorry, this has been really laggy scrolling it because it's almost an 100-page document. And then of course we went into Jada's Parli Spagnolo, which is kind of about like the same kind of like finding an identity like in a place where maybe you haven't quite found that yet, which is, I mean, at least how we interpreted it when we read it. And so then we thought that was another way to kind of talk about like finding identity as well as independence, kind of within our new culture that we experience in Perugia. So yeah. And then again, sorry, it's so laggy.
It's a lot of pages.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work, you know, your work.
Our work, yeah. Okay.
Do you want to talk about Peyton's?
Yeah.
I haven't decided.
So then our 4th section, what's inside, we kind of delve into like just like inner. We talked about, I think it was kind of funny actually. We can kind of talk about this when we were weaving together the stories. When we were grouping them, we kind of came up with hashtags to associate. And so like I think this hashtag for this section, we had talked about inner disposition, because it's kind of about, we go from like finding like identity within like a group or a community, and then I think almost kind of like not finding, but kind of acknowledging an identity within yourself, kind of. So which is why we talked about Peyton's. We used Peyton's awesome short story, which I didn't mind reading over and over again because it's so fun. And from there, we went into
Jada's Pinocchio piece. Yeah. So this was really interesting because this section in general, like, was pretty closely related to the last section, which was about like identity. This one is kind of more about like who you are maybe deep down, or what distinguishes you from other people. And it was super crazy when we found these two pieces because Peyton's talks about like this this deep evil within a character, and then you go into Jada's piece where Jada's blue fairy is like the kindest, sweetest fairy, like amidst these other fairies that are gonna, push her down a well. So we thought it was really interesting because it's just the complete contrast of like kind and good and wonderful, and then the darkness that can be hidden within other people.
okay.
Oh, well, here we go. So then I had my contrada piece, and this section talks about different interpretations of home, essentially. And so with my contrada piece, it is ideally written to like a relative back home. I think in my mind it was like my brother in this like fake alternate universe, but I was writing to a kind of a past family member who had kind of separated from me. And my thoughts obviously on family are very negative as a result of that, because he had stayed with the contrada culture and I had not, and I was not very happy with any of the aspects of it. And then I contrasted that with Avery's piece on Perugia, because she constantly talks about like its relation to home for her and how it makes her feel nostalgic and comfortable. And I thought it was interesting because two very different views of home were presented there. One which was kind of hateful in the contrada piece, and then one which was like, oh, home is the source of comfort for me. It helps me grow in this new environment still. And that was why we put those two together.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, let me kind of go into this one. I am obsessed with, oh my gosh. I'm obsessed with this title of this section. Oh, okay. Sorry. It's really, my computer is not happy with me right now.
Piano, piano. Piano, piano. Nice and slow.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to get reoriented. Okay, here we go. Oh my gosh. Too far. Okay.
Stop.
There we go. Okay, Where Allegiance Lies is our next category, or our next chapter, sorry. So first we start with Avery's piece, which I don't know if you guys remember that one, about the stable girl, Contrada, and her kind of
calm.
What was that? Wait, sorry, hello. Sorry. Did someone say something? Okay. I don't know what's going on. I feel like my laptop.
Oh, I heard something too. I don't know what it was.
Okay. All right. I can tell if it was my laptop, which I also just realized is about to die. So I need to go get my charger. But so we talked about Avery's piece, sorry, about the stable girl and kind of like her well, actually, do you want to kind of talk about more in detail this one, Meryl?
Yeah. So
Avery, try to find a charger really quick.
Yeah. So for the contrada piece, for Avery's contrada piece, it was very much like a story of dedication, so much to the fact that the mother of the stable girl in the story says, she says, I think you're taking this too seriously, or I think you should even come home for like dinner one night. But it's a big representation of the girl's dedication to a particular cause, which is obviously the contrada race. And then the second piece, which Kayla knows more about because she went through Mark's pieces, is Mark's one, the short story. Is it the short story? Oh, no, it's the Pinocchio story.
Pinocchio, which I loved what Mark did. He kind of took the Cat and the Fox characters and made them these outlaws in the Wild West, which is why I really love the title of this section, Where Allegiance Lies, because they're allies throughout the story, but they end up being but just kind of about like again, like kind of keeping with the theme in this chapter of kind of about like loyalty, but also betrayal and whatnot. So just like those really contrasted in these two stories, which we found was interesting. So yeah. And then, okay.
Oh, this was really this section was really fun too, because we talked about like a variety of scenarios where you could feel stuck in life. And what was really cool about this one was that it kind of went like in a progression of time and in intensity as well. So the first story in here was Avery's Pinocchio story, where he is in quarantine and he feels just stuck, not being able to go to school, not being able to go about his like new, more positive lifestyle. But that's like, obviously, that's like a more lighthearted story. And so that was one example of feeling stuck. And that kind of starts out like stuck in childhood. And then we went into Cece's Julia story. This is a very different type of stuck, but still in that theme. And obviously that's like a much more of like an inner stuckness and a more intense, like later in life, maybe you're dealing with, I mean, Julia is definitely older than Pinocchio and like seems to be like closer to midlife, and stuck in her own way. And then we also have Peyton's Contrada piece, which is her feeling like stuck in the Contrada lifestyle, and she can't escape it. She tries to fall in love with that man from, I'm forgetting the Contrada that he was a part of, but
Ended up also being a giraffe.
yeah. And she just can't escape. And I think that's what Peyton says in her last line of Elia, is that she just keeps falling back into this lifestyle. So those were like 3 different ways that people could have been stuck, and they were all so different.
Yeah.
That we
Different
thought they
ages,
were
like
like a good contrast from one another, and it just put everything into perspective.
Mm-hmm. I think like this one I particularly liked because I thought this section kind of showed like you can feel stuck at all different stages of life, but in each one, like,
It's all positive.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then that kind of shifted into our kind of like, so perspective. Which is like why we came from that one to this section, or from kind of like being stuck to like changing your perspective, which also kind of like feeds into the theme of like our anthology kind of overall, or a theme. And so we started with my Portrait of Perugia, which it was kind of about like how at first there was a lot of things I was kind of shunning about Perugia that were like, it was hard to adjust, but once I got used to it, you know, I kind of could see the beauty that it had to offer, physically and just kind of, you know, in general. And then we went into Meryl's, which I'll let her talk about.
Oh yes, yeah. So Kaylin and I, when trying to contrast these pieces, we saw that Kaylin's was a very like endearing portrait of Perugia, and again, like trying to distinguish and put like the portraits of Perugia into sections was really hard, because at first they all kind of look the same, because we're like, oh, we're all talking about the same thing, we all love Perugia, like nothing's different here. But there are definitely like other underlying themes, like different vibes to the pieces. And so Kaylin, when she was describing hers to me, was like, she's like, it was very endearing, very cute, very heartfelt. And then I go into so to contrast with that, I put my Americans Back from Italy piece, because it's very satire-y, and it definitely picks fun in like kind of like not like a disconnected way, but not like you're not feeling things like that you'd be feeling when you read Kaylin's piece, because Kaylin's kind of makes you nostalgic and like, oh, I wish I could be there too. But mine is like, oh, maybe you're glad you came back from Italy. So we thought that was a good combination. And as Kaylin said before, with like going from I honestly already forget what the chapter before our perspective chapter, which we're in now, was, but we did also, in all of these contrasts, try to make sure that our titles of everything were flowing from one to the next. And we found that we were able to do that in kind of like a storytelling way, but that was like another kind of like pattern that we were trying to weave throughout the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so then kind of going from, that, our next section, we have seeking leadership. So we started with Mark's piece because it was like obviously, like, if you remember, it centers around Captain Pontus and kind of his relationship with his crew, who kind of end up betraying him and his leadership. But I loved the story, Mark. It was so fun. I also like just loved like I think I commented on your thing, but I just wanted to say in person the way you did the propositions or whatever, or the pronouns, sorry, were so cool. I really
Thank
like
you.
that.
I appreciate that.
So creative. Yeah. And then I don't know, do you wanna
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so this was like a contrast again with the portraits of heroes too. I think we only had Cece's in here, but we knew there was going to be a way we could put it in here, and we thought a really interesting way to put it was to contrast it with Mark's hero, kind of like if Mark wants to call him a hero or not, or whether the reader should view him as a hero is an interesting question. And then we go into Cece's, where it is a hero that Cece looks up to in everyday life, who I also looked up to, and so it's interesting to contrast someone who seems to be like Emma Watson, seems to be very not perfect, but such a good person and someone very easy to look up to, and then the Captain Pontus, who is kind of like up in the air, like are his crew members looking up to him as a hero or not?
Exactly. Okay, let me move into kind of kind of moving from like, you change perspective. We've talked about like then, like leadership, which can take many different forms. And then kind of like an awakening kind of topic for this section. So we started with my short story, which was kind of an awakening for like the main protagonist as well as the antagonist in this story, I would say. As there goes kind of, it kind of provides like a background and then like an event that then causes both of these characters to have to totally kind of change their lives and like reawaken to like what they may have like within themselves. And then that contrast with Meryl's, which I'll let her talk about because it's hers.
Oh yeah, and then for this one, it was a different type of awakening. It was the awakening, which was a big theme of my Portrait of Perugia piece. Just the way, like, obviously, Kaylin's character is having a different type of awakening coming out of her relationship. But what I talk about in my Portrait of Perugia piece is like an awakening just like from the different lifestyle of Italians, like, feeling your senses all the more fully and just realizing that you should go about every day living in the present more than you should be hoping about the future constantly. And so that was just like a different type of awakening.
Mm-hmm. And then we had our final section in the end, appropriately.
Here's my very dark Pinocchio piece, which is going to be contrasted with Cece's cemetery piece, because they both talk about the afterlife, essentially. But obviously Cece's talks about it in a much more delicate way. Like she's going to the cemetery that we went to, or a character is in the letter, trying to find a grave for her friend or whoever she's writing to. And it's talking about how beautiful the cemetery is, and she's sorry that she couldn't find the grave. But it's like a very appreciative piece. And then contrasted with the one I wrote about Pinocchio, my Pinocchio story, I don't know if anybody's read it, but it's about Pinocchio ending up in hell for all of his bad behavior. And so that's just very, that is certainly a different look at afterlife. Whereas Cece's is a lot more, like, gives us a lot more hope for the future. And it's like, wow, you could be resting in this beautiful cemetery, which we all had the pleasure of going through. And then there's the Pinocchio piece, which is just very dark and saying, or you could end up this way. So that is how we ended it. And that was also part of our overarching theme of, putting it from those creation stories in the beginning to putting in the end chapter at the end, and it obviously coordinated with the contradicting pieces too.
Yeah, it's kind of putting it to rest, but in a hopeful
way. Yeah.
So. Guys, that's amazing.
Love it.
Yeah, you guys did a really good job.
That was awesome.
Like, I loved it.
That was really, really cool.
Yeah, and isn't it, when you think about already, we have like 100 pages of work done. Can
Mhm.
you believe it? You know,
No.
and this is not even all the work done throughout the semester. So,
Yeah,
Oh,
eh,
yeah.
so
exactly.
one page at a time, you know, one paragraph per day. That's how you end up building up things, you know, one at a time. And amazing job. But I think that overall, this has been really, you know, an incredible semester. And of course, there, from my perspective, there have I have lived other semesters with different groups of students, and they kind of look alike, and of course they're all different from one another, but this one is going to be forever the one. I don't think there's ever going to be another one like this. So
Yeah.
I think it was, you know, great for me. For me, it was very important to keep working with you guys once all this craziness started, because, you know, it was really refreshing and a lot of work, yes, but also something that was beautiful to do. And you guys did great. You know, never lost track of what you were supposed to do, kept working hard. We stayed as a group. I could feel that, you know, the group was there and it stayed. So I'm extremely grateful. It's been really like a joy to work with all of you. And I'm super happy. And of course, I'm gonna miss you, but we'll stay in touch. And this anthology is really like, you know, the frosting on the cake. È bellissima. So I'm super happy and super grateful. So grazie.
That's it.
Thank you,
Grazie.
Antonella. Thank you. I'll be sure to send this link to everyone as
Mhm.
soon as we
Yeah.
get off.
Yeah.
And
And
I'll publish it online. And you know, the only thing that we need probably is page
Page-
numbers.
I knew you were gonna say it. I knew that
Page
was.
numbers. Then table of content is up to you, because that's an editorial choice, but page numbers are needed, because I'm always obsessed with the idea that we have one manuscript surviving somewhere, and then, you know, it gets scattered and it's impossible to put it back together. So even, you know, even now that we have this, you know, lots of technology, but page numbers are important. Okay, if we go back to the, you know, you stopped sharing, I can maybe share something with you.
Yes. Let's see. Stop share.
Eccolo qua. Okay, so I'm also very happy about your final reading, which is available both on YouTube and on Moodle. Here we go. Okay, let me do this. Okay, share. So, can you see it? So, here it is. I have associated a different picture with each story that works as the cover. If you go on YouTube, it looks like this. Italian Tales and Stories, spring. Oh, this is still, it says still 20 to 22, but I fixed it. This is an old view. I can actually, you know, fix it even now. Okay, so the series is the one that I shared with you on Moodle. So first Jada, and then Shemin, Siena, Julia, Faces. This is cool because Peyton was not able to record it in one document because she did it on her phone. So it's, you all remember the story. It's a very, you know, gloomy story, dark story with the serial killer, whatever. So it's divided into two parts, which adds suspense to that. So Faces Part 1, Faces Part 2, then The Train That Never Stopped. And I put as a cover the original picture from Collodi's book with Pinocchio and the Fox and the Cat. Then and Now Feeling by Mariel has, flags on Italian balconies showing, Italian and American flags. And then, the same picture that I was using now for my, back screen, the back of my screen, Perugia, a view from the steps. And I'm sure you're all very, very familiar with that view. Usually at the end of the semester, and I remember saying this to you, I'm looking for something else. Let's see if I can find it. Hold on. Ecco. So we talked about this at the beginning of the semester, and I said how usually at the end of the semester we have this public reading, and sometimes we do it at Pinturicchio, sometimes we do it some other place, but it's a party. We did not get that, but we had a beautiful conclusion nonetheless. However, a year ago, May 2019, the final performance, the final reading was held at Pinturicchio Cafe, and there was this one student in particular, Olivia, who had a pretty tough semester. And, eventually I was able to, persuade her to keep working, and she completed her coursework. That was great. And she had written at some point during the semester a song. And I really pushed her saying, Olivia, you gotta play the song at the final show. And I also asked their permission to have it recorded. So Jacopo recorded the song live and then made this, which I would like to share with you.
Break into another day. Are the buildings shaking? 'Cause it's changing. The old life feels kind of faded, but I will be alright. Thrown into an open sea. You and I are running in the street, and I'm blowing in the night. I'm kind of frozen in the eye of a storm. And I'm praying good times are gonna save me, wake me up for the world. Stay, 'cause we don't have much left to say, and time is passing us quickly. I won't go till you get yours. Put your hands on me, babe. The end is close and it's okay. I'm not alone, I feel the same. And our world is miles away. And I'm hoping this night fades out slowly so I can get it right. Up till dawn, another drink. Peace of mind don't come easy for me. Your heart, and now I'm stumbling as I'm leaving the bar. And I notice the sky is out of focus. Let's just lie and watch the stars. Not much left to say, and time is passing so quickly. I won't go till you get. Put your hands on me, babe. The end is close, but it's okay. Can't feel alone, we feel the same. And our world is miles away. And I'm blowing in the night. I'm kind of times are gonna save me. Maybe I just got it right. Thanks.
So that was Olivia. And, you know, more music. This was not. I don't know where this is coming from, but it's kind of nice.
Tells me that this sense of security is strong.
Alrighty, so that was Olivia, a little taste of Perugia, and you know, my way of saying, you know, goodbye and thank you. And I think we had a great experience together. So I'm gonna miss you all, but we'll stay in touch and come back. I'll be here sitting on the steps, you know, waiting for you. And next year, if you know, if everything goes well, I'll be in New York. So maybe that could be another option for, you know, meeting, or maybe, you know, even not only New York, but some other place. So stay in touch, contact me via social. I'm on Facebook and Twitter. I'm not an Instagrammer, even if I have an account, but I, you know, not an Instagram kind of type, but Twitter, fine. And, you know, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever. So, grazie. Thank you guys for a great semester. Thank you from, you know, the bottom of my heart.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Grazie. So enjoy the video recordings because they are so cool, and send me the anthology because I need to publish it and I want to read it all over again. So,
Yeah.
already. Grazie. Ciao.
Grazie. Ciao.
Ciao. Ciao.
Ciao.
a tutti. Ciao.